Perdón. So we're going well. So vamos a empezar ahora. We're going to get started here. We've got some introducing the sponsoring organizations. We want to see Resilience OC. Can somebody help me out in terms of all the organizations that are sponsoring?
Resilience Orange County.
Resilience Orange County.
Resilience Orange County.
Hold on.
Yes, thank you all for showing up and doing your part for civic engagement. We really want to do our part in getting the word out about the importance of voting and the importance of getting community input in this process. So sponsoring organizations, we have Resilience Orange County, Santana Building Healthy Communities, as well as Latino Health Access. And there will be a Santana City Candidates Forum next week here in the same location.
We've got all the questioners up in front. Elizabeth?
I think she's in the back.
Okay, so we'll have her come up in a minute here. We'll keep time sessions for everybody, about 2-minute responses. We'll put the questions out to make sure and vary it up in terms of who goes first, just to kind of keep things fair. If you guys want to challenge each other, you can. Just kind of try to keep it within the time limit areas that we have for questions. But if you see something that you want to challenge somebody on, feel free to do so. We'll just try to make sure to have a civil exchange. Make sense? Let's see here.
If you all are interested in submitting a question, we'll be passing these out. Yeah, question.
And so one of the things here that we may want to do is to just allow each one of you as candidates to introduce yourselves. So I'll just give you on a 2-minute limit to introduce. Art, we can start with you.
Good evening, everybody. Art Pedroza. I've been living here in Santa Ana for over 30 years. My wife and her mom graduated from Santa Ana High School.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So I've been here for over 30 years. My wife graduated from Santa Ana High, as did her mother. Feedback. There we go. My daughter graduated from Santa Ana High. All of my kids went to public school here in Santa Ana. I met a couple from Gadinas. 2 of my boys graduated from Gadinas. I've been teaching for about 15 years at Cerritos College in the adult education program. And I work for an insurance carrier doing what's called risk control. The reason I'm running is that there is an attempt right now to raise our taxes again, and that really bothered me. And so I decided to file and run as a candidate. I believe that the school district has enough money to do what they need to do, and that we really shouldn't be raising people's taxes at a time when we're all pretty overtaxed.
Thank you, Art.
My name is John Palacio. Both my children attended and graduated from Santa Ana schools. I've been on the board for approximately 20 years, and I have seen tremendous change, tremendous growth. We're the only school district in the state of California with a 96% Latino student body.
The force is strong with you, John. We should move here away from the mic.
Do you need the mic though?
Again, my name is John Palacio. I've been on the school board 20 years. Both my children attended and graduated from Santa Ana schools. So my kids are a product of the Santa Ana school system. I'm very proud of the things that this board is currently working on. And we're the school district, 96% Latino student body, 65% English learners, 93% free and reduced lunch. What that means that our students are within 4% of our school district, large school district, of having the highest graduation rate of any school district in Orange County. We're within 3% of having the lowest dropout rate in Orange County. And if you look at the kind of students that we have in socioeconomics and English learners, we are doing better than any school district, major school district in the state of California, if we compare apples to apples, and we're very proud of that. But it's not enough. We need to continue the process. We have a 70% reduction in expulsions and suspensions. We provide mental health services for our students and trauma care. And so I want to continue that. We have the opportunity. I believe investing in our students and investing in our schools. And the voter decides as to whether or not they want to continue investing. My colleague here, his kids graduated Godinez. If the voter hadn't decided to invest in Santa Ana schools, you wouldn't have had Godinez High School. Thank you.
So my name is Valerie Mesqua. Can you guys all hear me? Yes. Okay, do I need to use the mic? Yes. So I'm Valerie Mesqua, and I am the board president of Santa Ana Unified, and I say that very proudly. My family has deep roots here in Santa Ana. We've been here about 55 years. My father immigrated here as a young child. My grandmother came 20 years before him, or probably about 15. Proudly serve on the school board. Let me tell you why. I spent 30 years with the Orange County Probation Department. And yes, all over social media, they talk about that I did incarcerate youth. Yes, when I did work with youth in the gang unit, working suppression, yes, I did. What we say is we took the head off the snake, and then we also provided intervention. So suppression, intervention goes together. That's the only way it can be successful. So I am proud to say that since I have been on the board, because you should look at what's happened on the board. There's 4 board members that work very well together. We mesh. The board majority is moving forward, doing good things for our school, expanding mental health, expanding restorative justice, improving our schools, giving them additional funds so that we have currently in our first grade, we have instructional aids now so that our kids can learn to read better. So we're doing a lot of things that you probably don't hear about because not everybody comes to board meetings. It's very easy to hide behind a computer and do social media and talk about, oh look, she puts kids in jail. Oh look at this, look at that. Come to a board meeting, get involved. So I would ask the other candidates that are not here or that are even here, what have you done? What have you done to help improve our schools? What have you done to help our children? Because we can all complain. I like to complain too, but you know what? I don't complain. I work hard. And when I decided to retire a year ago, working with adults and organized crime, domestic violence, and sex crime, I have over 30 years of experience working in law enforcement. But I do not believe in incarcerating our children. I believe in educating them. That's what I believe in. But I also believe in giving our schools what they need. And do we have all the money to do that? No, we do not. Are we working on it? Yes. So I would say that please look at who you vote for based on actions. Not this, but actions. Because we can all talk about how bad things are, but let's talk about how good and what's been happening that's good.
Thank you. So we're going to start with some questions from some of the people that are in the school district. I think we're going to start off, remind me your name? Angel. I'll leave you the microphone. And you'll take the first question, and we'll go with
In the recent major study conducted by researchers at Chapman University in conjunction with ACLU of Southern California, it highlights the importance of increasing positive connections and protective factors as a way to create safe and inclusive environments for LGBT youth. According to the report, 5.4% of Orange County students identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and 1% identify as transgender. More than 15,000 students. The report found that in 1 year in Orange County, approximately 45.8% to 49.2% middle school and high school LGBT youth, compared to 13.5% to 15.2% of non-LGBT youth, seriously considered suicide. So how are our schools being equipped to support their LGBT student population, and how will you make sure this support is sustainable and ongoing so that we can create school climates where all students, including our LGBTQ students, feel safe and supported to be their most authentic selves?
Thank you, Angel. Great job. In terms of John? Yeah, let's do that way. John was 17.
The district believes in being very inclusive with all our students, regardless of whether or not they're LGBT, whether their immigration status. Absolutely. We invest about $10 million a year in making sure that all our students we have inclusive practices. We have peer-to-peer counseling for our students. We have different student clubs. We have nonprofit community organizations to come in and work with our students in addressing our personal issues. We are the model for being inclusive and putting in the resources necessary to support our students. Because you know what? As a school board member, I'm here to support our students. I'm not here to do anything other than that. It's about students, and every student is very important regardless of their particular status. And we're real pleased to have done that and to be able to put the resources. But we put approximately $10 million a year, and because that's important. And so absolutely, we believe in that.
So actually, like at my school, there isn't like a club or anything that like shows that we're actually supporting the LGBT.
You have the opportunity to create a club. If you want to create one, there is a process for you to create one.
So I think that if we want to support them, there should already be a created one to show that when they come in, they're supported, they feel welcome.
That's a good point.
So I don't need a microphone, and I'm gonna go next. I sit on the school climate committee that was created right before I got elected, thanks to Mr. Palacio. And I sit there now as the board president, and as a board member, John and I are both members. We are the first district in Orange County and across the state that has what we call a school climate committee, which includes parents, nonprofits, school district, law enforcement. And what we do in that meeting, we've been meeting now for 4.5 years, and what we do, we look at the restorative practices, we look at the LGBT issues, we look at whatever issues the parents and the students bring up to us. They help us write our policies. They address the needs with us. We implement policy changes based on that group. It's not the only group, but it's a very powerful group because we also work with the LGBT Center. And let me just share this with you. We are the first school district that, based on areas, and if you're not familiar with areas, it's when you register for school, what name you register under. We allow our children to register under the name that they want to identify with. That's what we do. We are the very first school district to do that. And the reason we did that is because we know that our children that are from the LGBT community, they're not any different, but yes, they want to be transgender. If I decide tomorrow to change my name to John, then guess what? That's what I'm going to be called. And we respect that. And we work with them. And we offer mental health services. And we've invested, as John said, $10 million. We are very open and transparent about that. We do not hide behind it. Have we received pushback from some people in the community? Yes, we have. But you know what we say to them? We're here to serve our children, and we're here to serve our community. And I'm not going to tell anybody who to love and who not to love and how to identify themselves. That's not my job. My job is to serve you as an elected official. So yes, we do provide services. And Mijo, I'm sorry you don't have a club on your campus, and all you have to do is ask your principal, and we will create one for you.
Great question. Thanks for asking that. So I think what I would bring to the table is my own experience in this area. My nephew, Luke, used to be my niece, Nina, and a year ago decided to transition. And I support that, and I support all the kids out there. Whatever it is that they want to do that makes them happy in terms of this lifestyle, I support it. So I have that personal experience. My brother, my only brother, took his own life. He was bipolar, struggled with that for years, was never able to really treat the problem. So, suicide is a huge problem in every community. And I think that's the value I would bring to the school board, is being able to talk about these issues from a personal standpoint. I support the efforts that my colleagues here have talked about. Kids need to be comfortable at school. I myself was bullied as a kid. I was one of only a handful of Latinos at my school, and it's painful. I grew up being called all kinds of names, and so kids need to be comfortable. We got to stop bullying as well.
So I appreciate your answer, and so I'm not going to tap, but I just have a question for you, Mr. Pedrosa. So when we say we support it, but yet you blog about, is the city ready for the first openly gay city council? So can you talk about that? Because I appreciate that you're supportive of it, but when we blog those types of stories, it sends a message that we're not supportive of it. So again, it's not a personal attack, it's just clarification.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That post was a good question. I don't know. I mean, we haven't really Mr. Gonzalez is here tonight. We haven't, to my knowledge, have never had a gay city council candidate. So it's going to be really interesting to see on November 6th how your campaign comes out. Because this city, if you go back, what was that initiative, John? Remember a few years ago? Was it the Gay Marriage Initiative? Prop 8. Yeah, I voted against that. I think that was against. But Latinos and African Americans, I can't remember, how did that go, Paul? I support gay marriage. I can't remember the way the ballot measure was worded, but.
And you want us to trust you with your kids? With our kids?
It's been a long time.
We're just talking about yourself this whole time. All right, let's move on.
If you guys want to submit a question, please do. Look,
Fair enough.
one of my colleagues didn't show up tonight because she didn't want to deal with this. I'm happy to. I'm here. So I only ask you to be polite about it.
Absolutely, that should be supported. Elizabeth, let's go with your question at this point.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Elizabeth Martínez.
Her name is Elizabeth Martinez.
Si eres elegido o reelegido como administrador, ¿cómo te aseguras que los estudiantes sepan que su escuela tiene un plan de emergencia para cualquier crisis que pueda ocurrir?
Repeat it one more time in English, which is again, if you are elected or re-elected as an administrator, how do you ensure that students know that their school has an emergency plan for any crisis that may occur? And I'll just vary this up. Valerie, I'll start with you.
So when I got elected, school police were a little different. Now they've been trained on brain trauma. They've received training on teenage brain development. They have the tools that they need. They're very involved in our community, but also they did not receive active shooter training. So what is that? If there's an active shooter, an emergency on our campus, what happens? Are they trained for it? So the majority of the board voted to support that. They were trained along with Santa Ana PD. And so we have policies in place now that if there is an emergency, our officers know what to do, our teachers are trained on what to do, our classified are trained, and even board members, we had to go through training. So I'm very proud of the fact that we have invested, again, additional funds in preparing our staff and our kids and our parents. We've informed our parents. If you have not been informed, I apologize and let me know. We'll get you that information because we have been doing training on a regular basis. This is the first year, again, at the direction of the majority of the board, that we spent 2 days before school started in training, professional development for all staff, classified and certificated. Everybody, from the woman who, when you walk in, the woman or the gentleman that says hello to you in the morning, they were all trained for 2 days. We've never done that in the history of the district. And we did it this year, and we paid them to come in because we think safety is a priority. And we are looking at cameras. We have one way in, one way out. We're working on that. Are we perfect? No. And again, there's reasons why. It costs money to put cameras all over every single school. But we are looking at it. We are using the funds that we have available to do that. And I can go on and on about school safety, but I'll tell you, we did take a survey of our parents and our children, and the response that we have, and we have the data to show, and we'd gladly show data to you, is that our children and our parents feel safer on school campuses than they do in the community.
Time's up. Thank you. Art, let's go with you.
I'm sorry, can I just interject? Sorry, I'm interpreting, so if you can slow down, because some of you are speaking really fast. I'm keeping up, but if you slow down, then folks can also keep up.
So again, I support everything Valerie said. I've actually been working in occupational safety for almost 20 years. It's what I do for a living. At one time or another, I've been a 40-hour OSHA instructor. I've worked in every aspect of public safety, and so even now I serve in the Orange County Emergency Medical Care Commission. So I'm glad to hear that the schools are doing all of these things. I've visited quite a few schools over the years myself and have seen that they have good programs in place. But I'm glad you mentioned the parents, because a lot of this really, the safety message needs to come home, because what's going to happen if something happens at home, you know, we're still got to worry about these kids. So I've been through the CERT program. I don't know if my colleagues have been through that, but that was a 9-week course with Santa Ana Fire, Santa Ana Police. I graduated from that a long time ago. And I do encourage all of you, if you're concerned about this, you can Google it, Santa Ana CERT, C-E-R-T. It's a great program where you can learn what you can do to help our public safety officials when there's a big calamity like an earthquake.
I didn't complete the CERT program. program because I'm an officer in the state of California, so I have much more training than that, so thank you for Palacio.
John?
You know, student safety is real important. The district is putting a lot of resources. In fact, the Measure I, which is the ballot initiative for school bond, in it are really our opportunity to put in the infrastructure that would make our schools safer, which would allow us to put more lighting, exterior lighting, to put in fencing, to put in technologies that cameras that be state of the art. So we believe that we have a long way to go, but we're putting in a lot of resources. Just at the last board meeting, 2 board meetings ago, we voted, I think it was a 4-1 vote, on investing in cameras, security cameras, because we believe in providing state-of-the-art cameras to protect our families and our students and our employees. Training is very, very important, and we take it very seriously. In fact, we're working very closely with the Orange County Fire Authority, City Santa PD, as well as our own school police. We are increasing the number of police officers in the district. We're looking at increasing about 7 more police officers that would help us to provide expanded safety services. We're the only school district in Orange County, one of, I believe, 6 or 7 in the state of California, that have their own school police. So, and that costs us, we spend about $8-9 million a year in providing safety. And so, you know, when someone says that we don't do enough, well, no other district is doing what we're doing. No one has their own district police department. We do, and because we believe in investing in making sure that our kids and parents and students are safe.
Thank you, John. So we're going to move it over here for Charlie Varela, who also has a question.
Okay. Over 5,000 students in the state, in our school district, live without housing instability in shelters, cars, motels, campsites with family or friends that aren't their parents, or sharing houses with multiple families. In October 2018, between 2011 and 2016, 2,207 families were evicted in Santa Ana, and those numbers continue to grow today. Access to stable housing is a basic necessity for students to succeed. The number of students in SAUSD who are classified as homeless under the McKinney and Vento Act have been growing. What will you guys do to address this issue and support the students?
Thank you, Charlie. Art, let's talk with you.
Absolutely true that we have a housing crisis, not just in Santa Ana, but really all over California. It's one of the reasons I'm opposed to property tax increases, because what happens when you raise property taxes? The rents go up. People can barely afford to live here as it is, so really I think as a school district we need to ask ourselves, can we do what we need to do using our considerable budget without having to tax the people more? Look, at the end of the day, I can afford to pay whatever tax. I have great jobs, I do very well financially. I'm worried about the families in Santa Ana that are counting the quarters, about the families that, as the young man mentioned, are having a hard time even finding a place to live. Every single extra tax hurts those families considerably. Those are the families I'm worried about. The rest of us who can afford this, great, but for the families who are hurting, the last thing we need to do is add to their tax burden. So what else can we do? We gotta make it easier to build this kind of housing. Currently, the codes make it very difficult. It's hard to get things through planning. Very difficult to add more housing stock. So, you know, as a state, that's really almost a state issue, but we have to look at what can we do to streamline more development and get more people housed. It's really important. It's gotta be difficult to focus on your studies when you're sleeping on somebody's couch, that's for sure.
Thank you, Art. Valerie.
So, I'm a school board member, I'm not a city council member, I just want to be really clear on that, and I know the city council has looked at that, and from a perspective of a school board member, I can tell you that we have over 6,000 homeless children that fall under McKinney Vento, 6,675 the last time I looked. We have staff that work very closely with them, provide them services. We had about 3 meetings ago, it came to the board to approve additional funds for bus passes and gift cards for falas, for clothes, and for food pantries, and it was a 4-to-1 vote to give additional services to our families. It was a 4-to-1 vote. How do you say no to our families? How do you say no to bus passes when our children are sleeping in the cars or they're sleeping 20 people in one apartment? How do you do that? So again, we have invested money. We have a homeless liaison who works very closely with social services and all the county agencies. And that was part of the reason why, as a board majority, we created the wellness centers. We changed the name from parent centers to wellness centers because we're taking a very holistic approach. And we're not just going to be addressing the needs of our parents, but also the needs of our community and the needs of our children. There's food pantries, there'll be clothing, there'll be agencies that'll be coming in, providing services to our families. Do we have all the answers? No, we do not. But are we doing our best to take care of them with the limited resources that we have? I can probably say yes. So when you have a board that, when an item comes before them and they say, the school would like to open a food pantry and we'd like a little additional funding, the majority of the board says yes. That's 4 of us. We say yes. There's always that one no. Because that comment is, well, somebody else can do it. It's not our job. It's like when mental health comes up. It's not our job. It's social services' job. Well, that's an ignorant statement because are the social emotional needs of our children and academic, they go hand in hand. We can't be successful without the other. So yes, we are addressing it.
Parents take care of their children. Not up to society.
This is a very real issue. We put in resources in the district. We have a staff that works with the homeless, students and their families. So we work very hard to provide that support. And I think that's important. We recognize that. You know, we believe in investing in our students, investing in our schools. The voter makes that decision. You know, if the voter says no, it is no. But that's a democratic process. And why not give them the opportunity to make those decisions? And the tax burden, that's what the taxpayer needs to decide. The cost, the average cost would be $5 a month. Spending $60 a month, a year, is worth to invest in my students. I'm willing to invest in that. It's $5 a month on the average assessment of $263,000. Okay, I've been living in Santa Ana. I live in the north end of the city. My tax assessment would be about $4 a month because I've been there for 38 years. And so, but that's the choice that voters make. They can decide whether they want to invest in their schools. Every school district has that opportunity to make that decision. But why not give them the opportunity? Why do we make decisions for them to not consider it? And that's the difference. And so, you know, when you look at all the issues that we were faced with, we've been putting a lot of resources going back to the homeless, to the students. We provide them with the support services they need very extensively. And because it's about students, you know, and our parents, I think they're willing to invest in their children, invest in their schools. Here's the irony. 2 of the 3 board members, their children went to one of the schools that Measure C built. That was Segerstrom High School. Another board member graduated from, I believe it was Segerstrom as well.
Okay. Next question. I'll take this one up, which is Measure. Well, I'll switch in one, and then we've got some more student questionnaires to come in. I'll just take one on Measure I, which is the ballot proposal that places a bond of $232 million to update classrooms, labs, facilities, and what we're curious about is what is your stance on Measure I? Art, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, in my whole life, I have never ever supported any tax increase. I feel we're overtaxed. I don't know if you guys know this, but the money you make working, up until April, everything you earn between January and April all goes to the taxes that you pay. It's incredible how much we pay in taxes. Orange Unified just remodeled their stadium, and they did it with general fund money. The money's there. It just depends how it's allocated and how it's spent. I don't want to see any more tax increases because it's going to hurt the poor the most. Now, we're living in a city where there's also Measure X. They're trying to raise the sales tax to the highest in Orange County. It's a death of 1,000 paper cuts. I can handle it. John can handle it. Presumably Valerie can handle it now that she's retired and has a pension. But the reality is, don't laugh too hard. The reality is a lot of families in Santa Ana, as I mentioned earlier, are struggling to pay their bills. We can say $5 a month. What is that? That's a box of pañales. All right? We need to stop nickel and diming people to death. And look, when you look at the history of the bond measures in Santa Ana, okay on time? When you look at the history, the first measure was supposed to build 13 schools. They built 5. You know, what John's not mentioning is every time they pass one of these measures, they put something in there where you can only hire union contractors, even though the great, like 95% of workers in California don't belong to unions. And so then you end up driving up the cost, you end up creating delays, you end up wasting our money. So bad enough that you have tax increases, but on top of that, the salt in the wound is you end up not even hiring people locally, you're bringing in union workers from outside. That's just not right. So I'm against Measure I.
Valerie?
So I support Measure I for $5 a month. I go to Starbucks sometimes once or twice a day. Yes, on my pension that I worked 30 years for very hard day and night, sometimes on duty for 24 hours at a time. I earned that pension. I pay my own bills. I bought my own house. My father and nobody else did it for me. So I did it by myself as a woman, as a single mom raising a son. So do I support it? Yes, I do. Because Irvine just passed one, and there was no hesitation. Any of their schools that are older than 1971, they're like, nope, we want new schools. Garden Grove passed one, and Orange Unified did pass one. So when we share information, we need to be real accurate. And again, it's not about building this montage. So Westminster PD spent millions of dollars on this new police department, but then they didn't use it, and they're still not using it because they don't have officers to put in there. Is that a waste of money to me? Yes, it is. But when you're talking about creating 21st century classrooms for our children, yes, I will not go to Starbucks 3 times a week and pay the difference. Yes, I'm not going to talk about the sales tax. I don't support the sales tax in our city, but I do support the bond for our children because, again, I work for our kids. I work for this community. Our special ed children need special classrooms. We have so many needs. And again, if you're not involved, you don't come to board meetings, you don't come to forums, you don't go to even commissioner meetings as a commissioner. If you don't go to those things, you don't know what's happening. And that's why I'm so happy that you're all here because you get to see really what's happening. I invite you to a board meeting to hear how we struggle to find funds for special ed students. We have teachers that have 15-to-1 with children that have severe autism. Those classrooms need to be built out so they're safe for our kids. So do I support it? Yes, for a lot of different reasons. It's not lining my pockets. And let me just end with this. I'm very proud of my pension. I worked hard to protect my community. I put on a gun every day, and I came home safely. So please,
Time is up.
bring up my pension.
Even when the city's
You
broke,
go, girl.
even when the city's broke, because it's not the city.
Let me tell you, this bond is a choice that the board members have placed on the ballot that will allow the taxpayer to decide whether or not they want to fund it or not. Orange Unified, the stadium we talked about, was not paid for with general fund monies. It was a bond. In fact, it took 4 bonds opportunities for finally for the voters to decide. The irony is those who don't want to pay are first in line to put their kids in schools that were built with school bonds. Your children went to a school, Measure C was funded. Not all of them, of course not, because one goes to Foothill, right?
My daughter graduated from Santa Ana High School. I think I mentioned that earlier.
So what you need to understand is that this is democracy. You believe in democracy, majority rules. I believe that the voter deserves to have the right to have the opportunity to make that decision. And that's their choice. And many of the schools that people talk about, we had a board member who talked about, God, I wish when I was in school, this school was here. Yet that board member doesn't want to support building new schools or repurposing schools. See, everybody wants the services, everybody wants the programs, but no one's willing to invest. My view of the world is that let the voter decide. You know, it's their choice, you know, and I think it's worth it to invest in my children, in my grandchildren. And my kids are a product of Santa Ana schools, and I'm very pleased to be there. They deserve the best facilities that other communities have. They deserve it.
Thank you, John. We're going to move next to a student question. Paula?
So my student question would be, how would you assure that services that are in schools, such as like psychologists or counselors or other health providers would have that connection for students, so that like students know that they're available? Just because for me personally, like I suffered depression throughout high school, and I was the one sending people to psychologists. Like I'd get to class after a mental breakdown, and people would be like, "Why are you here?" Or like, "Where'd you go?" To see the psychologist. And they're like, "We have a psychologist?" So how would you assure that all these like health providers and like services that we're inputting in schools have the connection with students, so that like if they're going to be there for students, I think they like students should know that they have that support.
John, let's start with you. We'll just kind of go back in reverse.
I agree with you. We might need to do a better job of communicating what we have. But we spend between $10 to $15 million a year in providing those type of services, because we recognize that the issues that our students are being challenged with. The school climate committee that Ms. Amesco talked about, that's part of that process and trying to get input. We recognize that. We pursue grants, federal and state monies to help us fund it. We know it's important, and we know that our students are being challenged with many, many issues, from suicide to issues that are happening at home. And so, but we need to do a better job, and we will make sure that our school sites do a better job of what the services we have. But we have increased dramatically the number of support to address those issues. And thank you for telling us that.
All right, let's skip to you.
Thank you for that question. It's a good one. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up with a brother who was bipolar. It was really a huge issue in his life, and ended up killing himself. I wish he'd gotten more help early on, and it sounds like we have that help here at Santa Ana Unified, but maybe some of the kids don't know. So the main adults that they interact with the most are the teachers. So we really need the teachers to be kind of the points of contact to let these kids know when they see that they're struggling, to get them into the system, to make sure they connect them with whatever services are available. You know, Valerie and I recently attended a meeting at Santa Unified headquarters with all the different supers and assistant supers and all these folks with lots of titles. And I was really amazed that they gave us a packet, what was it, about an 1.5 inch, 2 inch packet, at how many programs we have here. So it doesn't surprise me to find out that there might be a disconnect where there's programs and people don't know about it. So we definitely have to make the effort. And I think that the best way, again, would be to have the teachers recommending these kids to these programs, because they're the ones that are interacting with the kids the most.
Thank you, Art.
So thank you for the question. Santa Ana Unified historically has paid the Department of Education anywhere from $6 to $8 million to handle the mental health services at our district. The majority of the board voted to start to slowly take that money, and we're bringing it in-house. We've hired our own social workers, interns. We have interns that we have now work with. We have a relationship with Chapman College, Bradman College, Phoenix, Cal State Fullerton, Kaiser, and I can go on and on. Those services, we are now providing them, or we will be at the wellness centers. We have additional staff on our school sites. If you do not know about them, I'm very sorry, and I will make sure to send an email out in the morning about getting that information to all of our students again. But we have increased, again, we voted 4-1 to increase the amount of money that we spend on mental health services, because we have children that do suffer from depression and anxiety and lots of other things. They come from homes that some of us in this room would never be able to live in or walk in. We cannot walk in their shoes. So yes, we have invested the money, we recognize the need, and the board majority is committed to continue to expand. We're looking for grants. We right now are waiting to hear from CalOptima. We partner with the California Endowment and many other agencies to provide services to our kids. And it's not that we don't think the Department of Ed has done a great job. They do a great job. But we're also working with OCAPICA, we're working with social services, we're working with Project Kinship, we're working with Mutual Ground, and the list goes on and on and on. And so we are doing things, and if we're not getting the message out again, that's one thing that as a board we say we need to do a better job in getting information out to our community. Because sometimes we forget, things are moving so fast and the district's so large that we need to provide more information to our parents. And I don't think it's just the teacher's job. It could be the custodian's job. It could be the woman at the front desk, our site clerk, who says good morning to you in the morning. It could be everybody's job. It is not just our teachers. We all have a responsibility to take care of our children.
Our next question is coming from Roxy.
So the California Healthy Youth Act was passed and signed into a law in 2016, and essentially it would update our middle school and high school sexual health education curriculum to be more inclusive of our LGBT students and update HIV prevention information. Unfortunately, our very own Orange County Department of Education Board members, a majority of them, recently organized reform around this new law as a tactic to stall the implementation of the new law. How will you make sure that our SAUSD schools are compliant with state law standards and update their sexual health education curriculum? And what will you respond to parents who have concerns about this new law?
Thank you, Roxy. All right, let's start with you.
You always give me the tough ones. So, obviously the school district has to comply with whatever the state laws are, and so that's really the bottom line. There are some people out there that have some concerns, and there's some opportunities for those people maybe to put their kids in other schools, and that's a big issue. But the state law is what it is, and so from what I can tell, it seems like the district is. Valerie's shaking her head. Yes, the district is complying. So that's exactly what they need to do. They need to comply with the state law, and if people aren't happy about a state law, then they need to contact their state legislators and try to change the law. But again, in this case, we're talking about middle school and high school. Is that correct? Those are exactly the ages when sex ed is important, and so we need to make sure kids are comfortable and they're getting the answers that they need. And let's face it, teenage pregnancy is a real problem. I know my daughter, when she was growing up, at least 3 of her friends got pregnant in high school, and it created a huge burden for them. Really, they're still suffering financially from that. So, sex ed is important, and we need to make sure the kids are getting the answers they need. Ultimately, the parents, need to be involved as well, and we need to support the parents, but, we do have to comply with the state laws.
Thank you, Rob. John, let's go with you.
I don't even care what the Orange County Board of Education says. You know that? They don't tell us what to do. And I'll tell them in front of their face. They don't tell us what to do. We follow state law, and we've been in compliance, and this new changes in the law merely reinforce the things that we're doing. This is not about politics. That's what they're doing. They're trying to create a political issues to preclude from doing what's required by law. And Mr. Pedrosa is absolutely right. You got a problem with the law? Go change it. But I don't care what they say. They cannot tell us what to do as a board. They can't. As long as we're complying with state law, hey, they can, scream and holler all they want. And the irony is, they believed so much that they were unwilling to share who was going to be on that panel. Isn't that interesting? You're having a panel and you want to be inclusive, you want to be transparent. It was just a political sense. They never told anybody what it was. There was an article in the paper, read it, it's in the registry. And most of the people there were there to talk about how do we get rid of the law? How do we not comply? But again, this is about students. It is not about politics. It's about students. And we're here to provide them with the information that they need to make informed choices. And that is what it's about. You know, I said, the little baby here reminds me of my grandkid. You know, I just turned 2 years old. And you know what? I'm investing for him in the future, or is it him or her? My side, hard to say, but that's why I support Measure I. That's why I support comprehensive health education, because I'm doing it for the children in their future.
So I support it, and I agree with John. We don't care what the Department of Education says. We're Santa Ana Unified, and the majority of the board supports it, and it's the law. We must be in compliance with the law. If you would like to opt out, you can as a parent, but let me just tell you, in this assembly district, we have the highest teen pregnancy. I'm a product of teen pregnancy. My mom was 14, my dad was 17. My parents always say, you know, in the beginning, they'd say, why do you say that? I said, because look, things turned out right. We don't all end up in jail and prison. We don't all have 5, 10, 20 kids. But when you're raised by a village, guess what? It doesn't damage you forever. It does not damage you forever. It's just a bump in the road. But can we prevent it? Yes. And that's why we're following the letter of the law. I'm not going to lose my badge as an officer because I failed to follow the law. I'm not going to do that because even as a board member, I can, and I will not. And if you want to opt out, you're more than welcome to. But again, let's talk about STDs. We have a high rate of STDs, and I know it's a parent's responsibility to teach their children. We know that. We are not trying to step in the role of the parents, but there's a law. And I agree, and I'm going to say this, and Art will probably say this is a historical moment. I agree with him. You want to change it? Change the law. But if you're not going to change the law, guess what? We're going to comply. We are going to comply. And I love when people say, oh, my children don't engage in sex because we do this and we train them this and they go to church and I go to church and there's somebody's business, but I do. You don't believe me, but I know I do. And guess what? Children, when they leave your home, you have no idea what they're doing most of the time. None whatsoever. I don't care what any parent in here says, I'm a parent. You don't. Because who is most influential in their lives? Their friends. Their friends. So, do I support it?
Time up.
We're going to support it because it's the law.
Thank you again. So we're going to move in this next section to a lightning round, just kind of quick answers, minute tops, to just basic questions. So I'll just start with the first one here.
Quickly, we're collecting cards again, questions. So if you are looking to submit a question, please submit it now. I'll be in the back.
Before we move on to the lightning round, we've got one more student to ask an open question. So let me get the mic over. I'll bet you.
I'm currently phone banking for Latinos in Orange County, and we are surveying them if they believe that 16 and older and non-citizens should be able to vote in local elections. Would you champion this effort to expand their voting rights? Okay. I'm currently phone banking Latinos in Orange County, and we are surveying them if they believe that 16 and older and non-citizens should be able to vote in local elections. Would you champion this effort to expand their voting rights?
You want to start?
Of course.
Go.
Yeah, I have not heard of any jurisdictions having voters as young as 16, but, you know, what I've seen over the years is young people a lot of times fail to vote anyway, so we really do need to try to get people who can vote to vote. My kids always vote. My kids have never missed an election, but obviously I'm there encouraging them to vote. And we don't always agree. You know, as a family, we sit down, we go over the ballot, we don't always agree. And that's good. I like my kids to be free thinkers. As for people that are not residents, there are jurisdictions, I've read about this, I think New York might be one of them, where people who don't have citizenship have been allowed to vote in school board elections. I think there's an argument to be made there that people in this city who may not have papeles, you know, are still constituents, their kids are in the schools. So I personally wouldn't be opposed to that. I think if you're a stakeholder, why not? Why not let people vote? Makes sense to me. My parents are both from Mexico. I grew up here. I was born here, but you know, obviously, like many of you, I have a lot of familia in Mexico still.
Thank you, Art. Valerie.
So I think our voice is very powerful. And how do we use it? We vote. So the law changes and it's 16. I support it because you know what? We need to teach our children to use their voices by voting. And people always say, well, you know, young kids, it's really, it's really not their business. No, it is their business because they're our future. So yeah, I would support it because you have a voice. Use it. Use it. It's powerful. It's very, very powerful. But always educate yourself before you mark that law.
Yes.
John?
I have to agree with Mr. Mesmer. If that's the law, absolutely we support it. I think that's important. The voice of our community is important. Our youth is important. The issues that you've addressed with us are very important. And we're more than happy to support that. It's actually Maryland that has that law and it has to do with school board elections. And but our youth need to come out and vote and make a difference. This election, those of you who are eligible to vote, you need to come out and vote because you can make a difference. Remember the last election. Your vote, there's consequences if you don't vote. Okay? And so your voice is real important. If you don't like the results and you didn't participate, then there's a reason why the results are what they are. And this is what happened in the last election. So all of you who are eligible, come out and vote, make a difference, have your voice heard.
Thank you, John. We're going to move on to the next section now, which is the lightning round, which again has quick questions, 1 minute limits on answers. The first one will be do you believe that teachers should have to buy materials for class out of their own pocket due to budget cuts? Valerie, let's start with you. We're just going to keep very
we should be providing what they need.
Art?
Yeah, I agree. I've seen that over the years, but we need to support our teachers. And as a parent myself, when my kids were going to school, we often would volunteer hours and donate materials as well. But it's really asking a lot to have the teachers have to pay for things themselves. I agree with Valerie. We need to provide the materials they need.
John?
I'm in agreement with both my colleagues here. I think it's important that as a district that we do provide the resources that we need in the classroom and that the classroom have the least impact if we ever had to make cuts. I've been through the process where over the years where we had to make some drastic decisions and we minimize the impact in the classroom. The role of the district is to provide the support in the classroom to our teachers so that teachers don't have to buy their own materials.
Thank you, John. So next question, which is, in 2013, the school district created a school climate committee composed of nonprofit partners, parents, students, and district staff to ensure the socio-emotional well-being of all students in the district. Will you ensure that this committee continues to be a part of Santa Ana Unified School District? Art?
Yeah, I think it's really important to protect the environment. My wife and I put solar panels at home. We really like that. And I think that we got to encourage the use of alternative energy.
So the school, can I go next?
Yes, no.
So the school climate committee again addresses the needs of our children, nonprofits, parents, students, law enforcement. And so they actually help us with the LCAP, and they are family. They're part of our team. They meet with the cabinet, they meet with the superintendent, they meet with the board. And so would we encourage it? I'm a member of the school climate committee, as is Mr. Palacio. And so the majority of the board, again, does support it 100%. As a matter of fact, we're looking for two new parents to join us, possibly. And we're always looking for students. We keep it tight because we want to get work done. So yes, I support it, and no, it's not about solar panels. It's about the needs of our children. When we say climate, we mean climate in our school campuses.
Thank you, Val. John?
Let me just echo the words by Ms. Amesco. I agree 100% with her comments.
All right, I'm going to give you a chance to come back at that question. Feel free to go.
Anyway, okay, so I chose the wrong climate in that context. They didn't have this committee when my kids were in the schools here, but I would definitely support this effort. And I still think you should all have solar panels.
Thank you. Next question. There are now more students with varying dietary needs, including vegetarians and vegans. If elected or re-elected, would you ensure different dietary options are being offered at school? John, let's start with you.
We're actually required by law. We have 2 dietitians working in nutrition services. And they work very closely with the parents and the teachers to make sure that special diets are in fact provided. It's required.
Thank you. Valerie?
Yes, I don't like to say that, but I agree with Mr. Palacio. We have staff that every single day they monitor the needs of our children. We have a unique case that we have, for example, a student that's allergic to paper. Imagine that. And so we have nutrition staff, dietitians, we have doctors, we comply with the law. We have children with special needs that have special diets. So yes, we have a wonderful nutrition services department and we are in compliance with the law.
Yes, as my colleague said, this is an issue of compliance, and so I'm glad to hear the district is complying. On a personal note, my oldest son is vegetarian, so I've had to support his diet. I myself have been on the paleo diet for 3 years, and I've lost 70 pounds, and I cannot eat that pizza, but you can have some. So I'm aware of the importance of good diet and exercise. It's definitely important. Don't feel bad. I still buy pizza for the kids every Friday.
Thank you.
But yeah, I can.
So next question. Do you believe that the police are necessary at schools? Valerie, let's start with you.
So as you know, I support law enforcement, but I also support the needs of our community. And when I say community policing, I truly believe in community policing. And I took a lot of heat in my department when I started to say it's about educating our children, not incarcerating them. They said, it's probably about time you retire now. And I said, you're right, it is, because I don't believe in incarcerating our children. However, I do believe in keeping our children safe. And so do we have police officers on every one of our campuses? No, we do not. We only have 25 police officers in the entire district. We're looking to go to 35, but not to put them on every school campus, but just so that when we need assistance at different campuses, they are available. So we do have one board member who always says, I want them on every single campus. That is not healthy for our children. That is not healthy for our children. We want them to have positive relationships with law enforcement and not be afraid of them. And so we have some SROs in some of our high schools, but we do not have them in all of our school campuses, and I would never support having police officers on every single campus. No.
Thank you. Art. Sure. It is. Do you believe that police are necessary at schools?
Interesting. I think school safety is really important, and you need to have school police officers. I don't know that you need to have them necessarily on every campus, but if they can respond to a campus that's in trouble, I think that's important. I met the head of the school police department recently when Valerie and I went out to meet the chief, and she's got a really good resume and I think is doing a good job. And I read about this quite often in the press releases from the school police and Santa Ana police, beyond the student population. These schools are right in the middle of communities, and sometimes the danger isn't from the school. Sometimes the danger is from outside the school. So we got to keep our kids safe from vagrants and gangs and whatever else might be going on around the school.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely, I believe in having police officers on our campuses. We're the only school district in Orange County, one of 7 in California, 6 or 7 in California, that have their own police department. They play a significant role in working with our parents and our teachers and our students in making sure that they're safe. And absolutely 100%. Because, you never know when you need them. They're always present as a deterrence, and they make a significant difference. This is on top of, we have about 40 district security officers that we have on campuses as well. So we have a force of approximately 65 people who are involved in some security matter. And remember all the activities that have occurred throughout the country, and there have been active shooters. Well, that's why you have security. And we've been blessed with having an active school police department who works not only with the Orange County Fire Authority, but they train with the city's Santa Ana Police Department as well to work together.
Thank you, John. Okay, so last question in this round. Are you in favor of privatizing education? Are you in favor of continuing to approve charter schools Valerie, let's start with you.
Oh, yeah, it's not hard at all. So I support public education 100%. 100%. I support parent choice. Wherever you want to send your child, it's fine. But please understand that in the city of Santa Ana, we have 15 charter schools. We're the only city in Orange County with 15 charter schools. Why do they come here? They take advantage of our immigrant population. Our immigrant community doesn't understand the public education system. They don't take our special ed children. They don't take our English learners. So, do I support them? No, I do not. But do I support public education? Yes, I do. I always will. Everybody in my family is a product of public education, and I support it. Because what happens, you know, all I can tell you is that we're not perfect. We have a lot of room to grow, but so does every school across the country. But we have great teachers, great staff, great programs, and so I support public education 100%.
Thank you, Dawn. John.
Public education is the cornerstone of education for our community. And I'm 100% in support of our public schools. There are 15 charter schools, of which 7 are within that have been approved by the school district over the years. 2 that we have our own. We have our own charter schools, but it's managed by the school district. And people have choices. They can choose to go to our public schools, or they can choose to go to a charter school, or they can choose to go to a private school. That's their choice. We believe that there's educational options. But at the end of the day, this is about serving the public's interest and the public taxpayer. And over 50%, almost 50% of all the charter schools in Orange County, guess where they're at? In Santa Ana. But yet these conservatives believe in charter schools, but will they put them in their own communities? They don't.
Thank you again. So we're going to move now towards open questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Norberto. I do support school choice, and I will tell you a quick story. One of my sons has an autism spectrum disorder, and we tried to educate him in the Santa Ana schools initially. They couldn't do it. The school district sent him to a charter school in, I want to say it was up in Orange. It was an Orangewood school, and they did a great job. He ended up being mainstreamed. We eventually got him back into the public schools here, and he graduated from Godinez, and he's doing really well at Santa Ana College now. But the charter schools do play a role. I think parents need to be able to make a choice. A lot of these schools have specialties, like the Orange County School of the Arts. Obviously, is a school that if your kids have inclination for the arts, is one of the best schools in the nation. So I definitely am for choice. A lot of times people are opposed to these schools, which I should mention, the charter schools are public schools. But they're opposed because most of them don't have unionized teachers. But High School of the Arts did allow their teachers to join the union. So it's really up to the charter school if they want to do that or not. But we need more choice. And the reason so many are here is because there's such a need for choice here in Santa Ana.
Thank you.
Nothing wrong with having a choice.
Okay, we're going to move now towards audience questions, make sure we have enough time to get everybody in. So I'm just going to kind of take them here generally. You mentioned that SAUSD works very closely with the school police. Last week, Chief Anastasia Smith, I believe is her last name, mentioned that the police forum that the quote school to prison pipeline does not exist. Do you believe it does? And if so, how should it be addressed? Valerie, let's start with you.
So thank you for that question. I spoke to her, I wasn't at the forum, but I did give her a historical perspective from Santa Ana because she comes from San Diego, so she didn't understand, I think, the question clearly, and so she did offer to meet with people from the community to answer that question and to have a dialogue with them. Do we have a school to prison pipeline? You bet we do. Santa Ana Unified used to have the highest rate of incarceration, and the zip codes were 92701 and 92703. We used to have it. We no longer have that. We got rid of zero tolerance. Our expulsions and suspension rates, as Mr. Palacio just shared, we're the second lowest in the county. And it's not because we're ignoring behavior, because you're going to hear people right all over social media, oh, she doesn't want to lock up kids. No, it's not about that. We're addressing the key issues. What is leading to that behavior? So we're addressing them. We're referring them to mental health. We're referring them to Project Kinship. We're referring them to neutral ground. We're not kicking them out. We're not expelling them. If they're expelled, they go to REACH, where they stay within our district so we can continue to provide them mental health services. Again, social emotional needs, academic, they go together. So I do not support the school to prison pipeline. I never have, and I never will. And yes, again, you know, I got beat up yesterday on social media about, oh, she puts kids in jail. That was 20 years ago. And guess what? That's my job if they break the law. If you break the law, sometimes you gotta go to jail. But even the Orange County Probation Department has changed. We are no longer booking children for minor misdemeanor offenses. They have to go through what's called a risk assessment tool. And if they're minor misdemeanor, non-violent offenses, they don't book them anymore. So across the country, we're changing how we're incarcerating our youth. So yes, do I believe in it? It's there. It's there. Do we have more work to do? Yes, we do. And we're working very closely with our police department to train them. And they're doing, I think they're doing a good job under our new chief. She's wonderful. I really like her.
Time. Art.
Valerie, you recently endorsed a candidate for state superintendent of education who got a huge donation from the Correctional Officers Union.
I did.
So when you talk about that pipeline, that candidate is part of that pipeline. I just want to point that out for the record.
So we want to show that you got the police endorsement saying
No, I did not get endorsed. No, I didn't get endorsed. I did get endorsed. I have no problem with that. I support our police. However, I support our local police, and you should all as well. The problem in this city isn't the police, it's the gangs.
You're for
So,
crime children, 14 and 15 as adults. You're for them getting the death penalty. You wrote this on your blog. You wrote this on your blog. You're for getting 14 and 15-year-old children and trying them as adults. How are you going to be on our board? How are you going to be for our children?
did you fill out a card?
Go ahead.
Answer the question.
It's kind of consistent.
How many
but-
of you guys have been in prison before?
Hey, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'm going to do the questions. So,
There's no system that's putting us in prison.
Go back
I don't think
to
any of you
the
guys have been in prison. Okay?
Go back
I get it. Let's keep the questions orderly as much as we can. We're trying to do this in a fair way. Art, go ahead.
All right, folks, let's calm it down.
I graduated.
I don't know what was in the pizza
We
tonight.
need to continue with this.
Yeah, that's fine. Art, go ahead.
Listen, the law that you're referencing is, you know, the problem that I have with that is you're going to have the gangs now using teenagers to shoot each other up, thinking they can't be incarcerated. So, but I do agree with Valerie that we need to do everything possible to keep people out of jail. The problem with jail is once they end up in prison, what are they going to learn in prison? They're going to come out hardened criminals and just keep at it. So.
No, you're wrong. Actually, we have more folks who have been incarcerated come out
guys,
and learn more in prison.
Listen, I respect your opinion, but let him finish. It's a debate. It's a forum. That's the whole point of it. Let's
I
hear what
appreciate
his
your passion.
opinions are. You can vote however you want, but let's let the people finish their statements. Go ahead.
So I'm glad to hear what Valerie was talking about, that we're making efforts to keep kids out of trouble, keep them out of jail. I think it is important to try to salvage people as much as possible and try to keep people on a good path to being productive citizens. That's a big part of school. Isn't just educating kids, but hey, there's Angie. But making sure that the kids are going to be good citizens. That's important.
It started at 7, Angie.
And she had another meeting. I'm glad she's here.
I'll give you that question. I appreciate you being here. Sure. The question, let me repeat it
Is that
again.
how she's going to show up to the school board meetings an hour late?
I get it, guys, but we're here. She's here. Let's ask the questions that are here.
Okay.
You can address it with her if you want individually or in open questions, but let's at least count. I don't want to be here until 10 p.m. at night. If we interrupt every single time, we're going to have issues.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Angie Khan. I'm running for school board because...
Well, Angie, you're right. Let's just keep going here. You're where you're at. I'm going to ask you the question that's in order. Is that fair? Because we are halfway through the forum, so we'll...
I'm just waiting for the question.
Fair enough. You mentioned that Santa Ana Unified School District works very closely with the school police. Last week, Chief Anastasia Smith mentioned at the police forum that the school-to-prison pipeline does not exist. Do you believe it does? And if so, how will you address it?
The school-to-prison pipeline is 70% of Santa Ana students not being able to read at grade level. If 70% of our students cannot even read, what do we expect them to do with the future? That, to me, is the prison, the pipeline to prison. So we need to correct that. And I'm sorry, but these 2 board members that failed us, our scores went down this year while everybody in California went up. That to me is failing. That to me is the pipeline to prison. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's left? John.
Barbara?
Our scores did not go down, so let's get the facts straight. What's important here to understand is that we are trying to provide the support to our students and to give them the ability, the educational options and interventions to help them. And you can see the results. Look at our graduation rates that you want to acknowledge. 93%. You can't read, but they can go to Harvard. They can go to the military academies. In fact, you're a graduate, didn't you? Can you read? You survived. So, at the end of the day, it's about students. It's not about politics. It's not about fake news. It's, the product is, this is an example of someone who graduated from Santa schools, went to UC Irvine, you competed. That means that we did a good job.
That was my school option.
You did a good job. I did a good job because, in fact, I wasn't born when you graduated.
But what about the 70% that couldn't read?
Okay. Everybody's answered this question? Okay. So we're going to go to the next question, which is pretty straightforward. How do you feel restorative justice is working in the district? Angie, let's start with you. And it's 2 minutes.
Let's just start by saying that the district can't even get one job done right, which is teach our kids to read and write at grade level. If they can't do one job right, we expect them to do other things. Please focus, please get your priorities straight, and stop wasting time. Our kids are not meeting the standards.
Art, we can continue with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really can't speak to what the restorative justice program is in the school. I've heard Valerie talk about it. She's very proud of what they're doing. But, Angie brings up a good point. The lack of math and English proficiency, that's the real problem. We live in a new world today. How are our kids going to compete if they're not proficient in math and English? It's a good question. Look, and I know it's difficult as English learners. I grew up speaking Spanish only. I still teach in Spanish. I'm glad that I'm bilingual, but the reality is you got to know English. It's very difficult to survive. The menial jobs are going away, people. They're going away. They were being replaced by robots. How are our kids going to survive if they're not proficient in math and English? That's really the big challenge.
Affordable housing and food security is a challenge.
Valerie.
So, do I believe in it? Yes, I do. As all of you that know me, I do believe in it. Should our children read and write? Yes, they should. Are we working on it? Yes. And that is why we put in the first grade instructional aids to help our teachers so that we can increase the reading ability of our children. We're looking at pre-K and we're working on kinder. So again, if you don't come to board meetings and if you don't get involved, again, the question is for the candidates that are running is, what are you doing to make a difference in our community? What do you do to help out our students? Because we can all complain. We can all use only one example. There's so many different things that are happening in our children's lives that it can't just be that one example. But if you don't have any life skills, you've never had a real career, and you've never really worked with people, you don't really understand, and no disrespect to you. So again, I just want to be clear that people come in and they say, well, you're doing this wrong, but you're not involved. You don't come to board meetings. You miss half of your commissioner meetings because I have an email that says you don't even go to your commissioner meetings. You arrive late to places. You just have one thing that spews all the time. But let me just say this. This year our kids graduated, 192 of them went off to UCI. They can read and write. They went to Stanford. They went to Berkeley. They went to MIT. They went to the military academy. The list of 600 and something went to Santa Ana College on our Project Promise. So are we perfect? And I'm open about that. And the majority of the board, we don't say we're perfect. We're far from perfect. Every district has their struggles. But when you come in and you're looking for Pleito, like, I'm telling you, you guys are all bad. Guess what? When you're sitting here and you're dealing with a budget that's 3 times the city council, 3 times the city council, You gotta know what you're doing, and you gotta listen, and you gotta be mature, and be able to play in the sandbox with everybody, and do what's best for our children.
As I said earlier, we have a graduation rate of 93%. Tell me what school district is 96% Latino? That's 92, 93% free and reduced lunch, socioeconomically, right? 65% English learners. Tell me what school district got 93% graduation rate? In fact, we all talk about how good Irvine schools are, right? If you compared us, apple to apple, socioeconomic students against socioeconomic students, English learners to English learners, you know what? We do better than they do. Okay? You know, my colleague here likes to run and say, well, compare Saddleback High School to Villa Park. You know? And you know, the reality is, we are by no means are we satisfied where we are, but look at the results. You cannot go to a military academy. You cannot go to UCI. You can't go to Harvard. You can't go to Yale. You can't win a national competition in speech and debate in 2 years.
If you can't read and write.
If you can't read and write. Isn't that interesting? And Mr. Joseph talked about how his kids did well in school. We taught his kids how to read and write. You went to UCI. I think you're working on your master's, I think, at Cal State Fullerton. We taught you how to read and write. Acknowledge our teachers. They're doing a good job.
Thank you, John. Next question. Everybody's answered this one? Next question. Santa Ana Unified School District is one of the largest districts with foster youth. Given all the barriers that foster youth face, how is the district addressing the special needs of foster youth? How is the district using local control funding to help foster youth? Angie, let's just start with you. Well, you know what? Fair enough, but he just finished. So, Valerie, why don't we start with you?
They can piggyback up a bit again.
So, can you repeat the question about foster youth? What are we doing?
Absolutely. It's basically that. It's Santa Ana Unified School District is one of the largest school districts with foster youth. Given all the barriers that foster youth face, how is the district addressing the special needs of foster youth? How is the district using local control funding to help foster youth?
So the last time I looked at the data, we have about 233 foster youth in our district. When I go to sleep at night, I see numbers in my head. And so 233, yes, we have the largest amount. So we have staff that work directly with them. We have staff that work with the healthcare agency. We have staff that work with their social workers. The other day I was at Santa Ana High School. We had a social worker there picking up prisoners kids. They connected with the principal, with the teacher. So we are working together as a team, and we've invested money. Again, talking about earlier when I said the majority of the board voted to give bus passes and gift cards to falas and help our foster youth. And it was a 4-to-1 vote because the other member said, well, that's not our business. It is our business. They're our youth. And so what are we doing? We're investing additional funds. We're giving them tutoring. We're monitoring them to make sure they go off to college. We're helping them fill out their financial aid paperwork. We're working with social services and their social workers very closely. We have staff that attend the ERDD meeting. And for those of you who don't know what it is up here because you're not involved, it's eliminating racial disparity and disproportionality. And what it is, we talk about foster youth. We talk about youth that are incarcerated. We talk about our school climates. We talk about the mental health needs of our schools. And so I sit there. I've been going to that meeting for 20 years. And so we are addressing it at the district. Do we have a room to do better? Yes, we do. And I say that all the time. No board member will sit up here and say we are perfect. But across the state of California, we're all experiencing the same problems. But it's what you do with it as a board. Again, if you have a board like the four of us, the majority, then we look at things from a different lens. We all come from different life experiences, employment experiences, mature. We look at things differently and we address the key issues. So we are working closely with social workers and the schools and the teachers and the therapists. And we are doing, I think we're doing a good job. And I know there's social workers in this room and I work called about it and we work very closely with them.
Thank you. Angie, let's go to you.
Well, going back, I'm not just making numbers. If you go to caasp.ca.gov, you can see that our numbers have been going down for reading and math levels. Going back to the 70% that can't read or write at grade level, I did go to school in Mexico until I was 9, so I do owe them that I was able to read and write at a grade level and then come back here to learn English. But what were they saying about foster youth? Yeah, so we have a charter school in Santa Ana that serves 70% foster kids at Samueli, and 80% of them were able to read at grade level and pass those state results. So my question is, what is our leadership doing wrong so that 80% of our kids are not meeting those standards? What is going on? So I decided to run for school board because I'm questioning their job. I'm questioning the fact that this is a charter school in Santa Ana serving fostering kids. They're reading at grade level. You have scholarship prep. They went up #1 in the state to go up in numbers in math, serving foster kids. So we need to change what we're doing at the district.
Go ahead, Art.
So I'm really happy to hear what Valerie said about the programs we have. My mom was a foster parent. I grew up with foster kids as my extra brothers and sisters, and the stories they would share were mind-blowing about the suffering in those communities. So I'm sensitive to that, and I think we need to continue to work with them. A lot of these kids, once they turn 18, they fall through the cracks, and it leads to more homelessness. So it's really imperative. We got to make sure that we serve that population and make sure that they can graduate being proficient in math and English as well.
Thank you, Art. Valerie? Oh, I'm sorry, John.
I can relate to foster children, although I was not a foster child, I was an orphan by age 10. My mother died when I was 2. My father died when he just turned 10, when I just turned 10. Okay, so I know what it's like, but I was blessed to have support from my relatives. Okay, so I can relate to the need of foster children. Samueli, you talk about Samueli, but Samueli's not in our school district. Okay, Samueli is in Santa Ana, but it's in Garden Grove Unified School District boundaries. It's not in Santa Ana Unified. What is important here is that we are putting resources in our schools for foster children. In fact, it's part of the California dashboard, which measures how we do in terms of addressing that particular student population. At the end of the day, I think Valerie said very well the kind of support we provide. But I think when you debate, let's talk about facts. I think a lot of the things that Ms. Connery talked about isn't true, and in terms of the data. And so it's important to, fake news doesn't work here. Okay, we need to, if you want to debate the facts.
All right, let's go for another one. How often do you visit classrooms to ensure that our students are learning and receiving the services we are promising? Art, let's start with you.
So when my kids were going to school here, my wife and I donated time every week. We were in the classrooms all the time. Obviously, my kids have pretty much grown up now. I don't have grandkids yet like John, but I'm sure that'll be the next level. I do think it's important for parents to donate their time in the classrooms, to stay in touch with the teachers, to continue to monitor their kids. Who was it that said earlier that you don't know what your kids are doing? As parents, you got to be on top of those things because it's a slippery slope for sure.
Question, as a board member or as a parent?
The question is just pretty general. It's you can kind of address it as you see fit. You want me to repeat it?
As a board member? As a board member.
Okay, Valerie, let's go with you next. Are you done, Art?
So if you were a board member,
Well, yeah, so if I was a board member, yeah, I would definitely be out there visiting the schools and spending time in the classrooms, talking to the teachers. I think it's important for not only board members, but people at district headquarters to get out there and see what's going on in the community. Y platicar con la gente.
Thank you.
I helped you out a little bit, Art. I'll give you, throw you a bone.
Valerie, you're up next.
So I visit schools regularly. I walk into classrooms, I meet with principals, I go with teachers, I sit in classrooms for sometimes all day long. I'm there, and I'm not looking for something bad. I'm looking there because I'm going there because I want to see what do we need, what's happening in our classrooms. We have wonderful teachers. I look at how many students are in the classroom. I look at how many EL learners we have, and what are we doing with them? What curriculum are we giving? I visit special ed classrooms because I want to see how the classroom is set up, talking earlier about the bond and how we can rearrange our classroom so that our kids are safe, and if they fall, they're not going to bump their head here and there. So I visit all the time, and I've been doing it in the 4 years I'm on the board because How can I sit up here and say I'm a board member and I represent you or the community or our schools if you don't go out and see and you don't know what's happening? Again, people come up here or they go to board meetings and say, you're not doing this or this is not happening. How would you know if you don't go out? How would you know if you're not involved? How do you know? Because you heard from one parent or one teacher? I listen to all teachers, all parents, all students. I give out my cell phone freely. You know, people call me. I visit and I listen. Because as a board member, I think all elected, city council, from the top down, if you're serving our community, we never forget what we're here for. We're here to serve you. We work for you. We don't work for ourselves unless you have your own political agenda, but I work for you. I work for our kids. I go look to see what their lunches look like. I got a picture of a moldy sandwich one time. I drove over there, checked out all the sandwiches. Guess what? There was only 3 or 4 of them. Got rid of them. So I'm a very active board member, and I will always be that way because I have a responsibility to those that I serve.
Thank you, Phil. Angie, you need to repeat the question? You get.
Hi, yes, I in fact was a board member for Scholarship Prep, the school that went up #1 in math proficiency in the state of California. And I wanted to learn, what is the school doing? Great. They don't have the most glamorous schools, they don't have the most glamorous classrooms, they're tiny, but they're doing great. And they're even learning Mandarin. So I want to learn what they're doing. I go to the classrooms, I sit there with the teachers, just a few students there, and I'm amazed at the love and passion that these teachers have to stay after hours tutoring these kids, calling parents, hey, your kid is not meeting the standards, come, we'll meet together, we'll tell you what to do. And that amazes me because I went to the school system, they never called my family. I went to Diamond, Jackson, Carr Intermediate, Segerstrom. My brother was failing at Segerstrom, they never called him. I had to go with Mr. McCullough and tell him, my brother's going from A to B to C. I can't wait for him to get to D or F. What can we do to change it? And he said, oh, we're not really worried about it until he gets to D's or F's. I'm like, you know what? No, I'm changing him to Samueli, where he went. It didn't work for him, then we changed him to Calvary Chapel. But every parent has the right to choose. And let me tell you, sometimes those options are not the most glamorous buildings. Sometimes it just takes passion and good scores.
Thank you, Angie. John.
How many people in this room are teachers? How many of you work in the school district? You ask them. They work 24/7. Yep. They engage their parents. They engage their students. If you were active in our schools instead of the charter schools, you would know that they work. Well, that's good. I've been doing it for years. I did it before I was.
I don't get paid to be in the board for the charter school. Volunteer time. I don't get benefits like you do.
You get paid by the California Policy Center.
That's
I don't
correct.
get paid. Fake news again. I do not.
No, you were an employee there.
No, I work for
Talk to us
nonprofit.
about the kids. Why are you talking
California
about
Policy Center is a
I do
nonprofit.
not get paid by the California Policy Center.
But anyway, at the end of the day, I ask all candidates, go into our schools and see how engaged our parents are and how engaged our administrators are trying to make a difference. I know because I was a parent. My kids graduated from Santa schools and I work with them to make a difference. As a school member, we're in our schools just about every day for something. And we always are asking, inquiring, what do you need? What can we do to be helpful? But you can't talk about our schools if you're not active in our schools. That's real important because it's you don't know anything about our schools. But I can tell you, we got great teachers, we have great students, great parents, and they are making a difference, and you can see the results. And it's real important. If you want to talk about our schools, get familiar with our schools.
I graduated.
And you should thank us for that, right?
So I know that.
Thank you, John. Okay, next question. Tell us about the role that you play in supporting special needs students in Santa Ana. John, we'll start with you.
I'm an expert in special education. Before I got on the board, I represented students, in particular kids with special needs. My oldest son is a child with special needs. He was one of the first kids to have been mainstreamed in the school district. Okay? He can read, he can write, he can do computers. He's got his own, you know. And here's the beauty of it. I had to work with the school district and our staff and my son, because we had one goal in mind. How can we best provide my student, my child with the best education? And he's the model. He's the model for inclusion. And I've represented kids, hundreds of kids over my career before I came on the board. I know about special needs, and I'm a very proud parent. I've been involved with children with special needs. I helped start a special needs program for Little League, and for 10 years, age 5 to 21. I've been involved. I've been on the Regional Center Board of Directors, which serves adults and children with special needs. My wife worked there as a licensed clinical worker. I've been on the board for that provide affordable housing for adults with special needs. So I'm very familiar with that. And you know what? Every day I fight for children with special needs, and that's very important to me, because I know that I have to be a strong voice, and I make a difference in that.
Thank you, John. Art, let's go with you.
So like John, as I mentioned earlier, I raised a son with special needs, and I'm so proud of him as well. He was mainstream, he's doing really well. And you know, as parents, it's a challenge when you have a special needs kid, but it's also a blessing in many ways. I taught my son how to cook, and he's a great cook. When I'm busy at work with this all the time, I'll call him, Mijo, can you make this or that? He can do it all. He's amazing. I also introduced him to my science fiction novels, and boy, he's turned out to be really great as a reader and enjoys reading to this day, which is so important. So I've lived that. I've been through the IEP meetings. You know, we went through the struggles with the district, and thank God we found some solutions. But I do hear from parents quite often who are having difficulties with the district, with their special needs kids. So I know there's a lot of room for improvement there as well. And as a board member, that's a special area that I'll be focusing on for sure.
Valerie, let's go with you.
So special needs is a priority to the majority of the board. We just approved, again, additional funding for special ed. And earlier when I talked about classrooms, I never used the word glamorous. What I used was safe. Because when you have autistic children or children with special needs, and if they're having a moment and they're having a breakdown, we want to have those classrooms set up so that they're not bumping their heads and they're not cutting themselves, or they're not getting injured. So I never use the word glamorous, and again, that's how people flip things around. So I just want to be really clear. I've sat in IEPs for 27 years when I did juvenile probation, and then juvenile supervision, and then even as an adult probation officer, I would go with them for their children's IEPs. Am I an expert like Mr. Palacio? No, but I'll tell you what I am. I am contacted by parents all the time. I have my dear friend here, Robin, who represents a special ed family in our district, and she's had 10 kids, I believe, that she's adopted and taken care of in special ed. When she calls me with a complaint or calls the board, we right away get on it. We have a special ed teacher in here. We have special ed teachers that are doing a great job, and the board is committed, and we will continue to commit funding to address the needs of our special ed children, because they are a priority to us, just like all of our other children. Are they a challenge? Yes. You have teachers that have 15 to 1. They have 15 children with autism, and there's one teacher. So what do we need to do as a board? We say, we're going to give you an A, because we want to make sure that you can provide the best services, keep yourself safe, keep them safe, and still educate them. So we think out of the box. And again, it comes with experience. It comes with visiting schools. It comes with being involved. And it comes with, yeah, we can probably, all of us up here can say we have families that have special needs. Yes, John's son, Art's son, you know, I have family members, but guess what? As a board member, a policy maker, it's what you do. Don't do this. You work. You get the work done.
Thank you, Thank you.
Yes, so the person I talked about that I transferred out of Segregación, my brother, he had an IEP, and that's why I took him out of the district. I also saw when Jeanette was in charge of the special education class at Valley High School, kids were picking up bottles to raise funds for a trip. That just broke my heart. And I'm not trying to judge anyone's work. What I'm trying to do, what can we do better? Because we can't just come here like, oh, I'm doing 100% right as a board member. Oh, everything's perfect and good. That is a lie. And if someone tells you that everything's okay when you know 70% can't read, when kids are picking up bottles from the streets to raise funds for a field trip, something is wrong. And I ask you, find your facts. Go online, go to caasp.ca.gov, look up at your school, look how your school is doing, and also go visit the classrooms. And also I have some students that my mom knows from having a son with an IEP that have not been given the resources. So I will be taking them to that board meeting because there are funds. And from what I hear from those parents, they always say they have no funds. So you guys will be hearing from me soon.
Thank you, Angie. Okay, so we're going to get now to closing statements. We'll start off with 2 minutes each for a closing statement. We'll start off with Art.
So again, I want to thank those who hosted this tonight and gave this community this event. There are no other school board candidates for it, so a big hand for the host for this event. And thank you to all of you who took time to be here. I really appreciate that. There's a lot of other things we could be doing, so I appreciate that you're here. I'm glad we had a chance to talk a little bit tonight. Obviously, it's impossible to cover everything. You can check out my website, pedroza4sausd.com. Also, you can approach me on Facebook. I'll stay a little bit after the meeting as well, but I want to make sure I don't get a parking ticket. But I'm running again because I think the district could be doing a better job with its finances. I don't like the fact that we're trying to raise taxes again. That's really a big issue to me. As Angie mentioned, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement when it comes to math and English. And again, I'm concerned, what are these kids going to do in the future if they're not proficient in math and English? Now more than ever, we have to sort that one out because the manual work's gone. I visit companies every day, and what I do in the insurance business and risk control, the manual work is going away. So we got to figure out how to work with our minds. And to do that, we need to be proficient. It shouldn't be a scary future. It should be a wonderful future for all of our kids.
Thank you, Art. Angie.
Good evening. My name is Angie Khan. I'm running for school board. I was not planning on running. I closed my committee, everything. But when I saw the scores, when I saw there was a bond on the ballot of $400 million as stated on the printed materials, I was concerned. I'm like, this is the third bond they're passing on you guys, working families of Santa Ana for the third time. We already owe $300 million. They're trying to pass $400 million more that your kids are going to be paying. But like I said before, it doesn't take glamorous classrooms, it doesn't take glamorous walls to have good scores. It takes heart, it takes a lot of dedication, it takes the ability to give teachers the opportunity to change the curriculum if they don't like it, because one curriculum does not fit all students. And I've heard from teachers myself that they've been told they cannot add additional materials to the students if it's not part of the curriculum. I'm sorry, but something needs to change. And that's in my heart to do. I graduated from the schools in the district. I see a lot of room for improvement. It's in my heart, and I want to make that change. Thank you.
Do you support Donald Trump, Angie? Do you support Donald Trump?
It's not really a matter of taking questions from the audience. No, it isn't, because if not, we'll take 500 questions. You can ask her whatever you want
Pushing the white
afterwards.
supremacist narrative.
Thank you.
Hey, Noe, I voted for Gary Johnson, Libertarian.
Valerie.
When she's representing 95% of Hispanics, it does matter if she votes for Trump, if she supports President Trump. It does.
I'm just following a network here. If you guys all want to start asking questions, we'll be here for another 2 hours. Because who will I tell that you can ask, but you cannot ask? There's 30 of you.
I'll
So
answer if
there's
she
a
does
format.
support Donald Trump.
Again, you can ask that. If we end up with time, you want to come back and talk about your endorsements, who you support, I'm happy to do that.
I also voted for Bernie in the primary.
Valerie.
I'm Valerie Mesqua, and I've been sitting here for 4 years on the board. And all I can tell you is that actions speak louder than words. I have worked very hard as a board member, now as a board president. The four of us work very well together. You have one board member that's pushing charter schools. Charter schools are attempting to destroy public education, and we have a right to protect public education and a responsibility. We have amazing teachers, we have amazing classified staff. Are all of our children reading and writing at the level? No. But we're all of you in this room, in the first, second grade, but you're all very successful. Are many of you English learners? Yes. but look at you now. So I look back and say, what can we do today? It's not about, well, you're not doing a good job, you're not doing a good job, and the only thing you hear from the other side is reading and writing. There's so much more when you're a board member. You have budgets, you have policy, you have state law, you have to work with the teachers, and you can't just change curriculum because it doesn't work for one class. There's actually ways you got to change curriculum across the district, and it costs money. So we spend millions of dollars buying new math books this year. But if you don't go to school board meetings, you don't get to hear how our budget is being spent. Every dime we're accountable for. Charter schools, they don't tell you what they do with their money. We do as public education, and we always will. So I can tell you that I will continue to fight for our kids, for our community. I will be an advocate because I will be the voice for those who do not have a voice. And I will continue to visit our schools and meet with our parents. I meet with them at all hours of the time of day and on weekends. Why? Because I'm committed to serve. And I serve by listening. I serve by listening. There's a difference. Serving by this. You serve by listening.
Time up.
That's what you do.
Thank you. John.
One of the candidates here talked about the financial condition of the district. We have the highest positive rating that a school district can receive. What that means is that we're good financial stewards of the district budget. We have the highest certification.
Who are you bonds? Citizen debt.
Number one. Number two, the bond is not $400 some million. It's
That's what's written on the ballot.
$232 million. Look it up.
It's on the ballot.
Don't make this respectful. Let him finish.
It's called respect.
Well, stop lying.
It's called respect, Andrew. She's an example that the public school system works. She's an example that the school bond, that she benefited from it because she went to Seegers from high school, right? And there's your state bank for that. It's one of the bonds you criticize.
I took my brother out of high school.
This is about investing in our children. The voter has the opportunity to decide whether they choose to do so or not. Okay? Let them make the choice. That's what democracy is about. You're trying to prevent people from us exercising our democratic right. That is to vote and make a decision. They will decide whether or not they want to invest or not. But I think our children deserve the best facilities, state-of-the-art laboratories, the best programs that are available, and best facilities. I think they deserve that. They have to decide that. But look at the results. Many people who are opposed to the bond are first in line. Hey, what for my child? I want this, I want that. Well, that's the choice you make. And it's easy to criticize if you're not engaged in our schools. Very easy. You can talk about Somali. Somali's not in Garden Grove Unified. It's in Garden Grove Unified School District. It's not Santa Unified. We believe in school choice. Parents can chive. They can decide whatever they want to do. But look at the results. We're within 3-4% of having the highest graduation rate of any major school district in Orange County.
Time up. Okay, well, we've reached the end of the panel. It's been a fascinating gathering. I appreciate everyone showing up and participating. Appreciate all of the sponsors. We'll see you at the next day.